start with Peter Joseph. Everyone should know Peter. He is a former emergency room doctor who retired to take up the planetary emergency, CRX for the planet, and nobody does live shows like Peter. So he was there, and then I'll introduce you one at a time. So.
All right, thank you. Yes, great job. Thank you so much for organizing these meetups. This is actually fantastic for the Climate Reality Project that all of you show up to these things for mutual support and education. And it's been a long time coming, and we all need to commit to coming to these things and cross-pollinating and forming a community that can support one another in the struggle. So I went to Paris because I trained in 2007 in Nashville along with Betsy, and that's a long time ago. And I'm deeply involved with the mainly Citizens Climate Lobby now, working for carbon tax. And I decided I'm going to Paris. I'm not a wonk, and I think the UN process is really screwy. But I want to meet the rest of the world's climate community. I want to see who shows up. And I'm not on the blue zone, that's the inside track. I'm in the green zone, which is the hoi polloi, people like me and you who aren't official. So I was very, very excited to be going to Paris. I planned it to leave the day after Thanksgiving, and really looking forward to this beautiful city. My wife was going to come with me at the very end. And, you know, we know what Paris has to offer in terms of culture, but then, you know, 2 weeks before this event, there was a little bit of trouble, which was terrifying. And for about 24 hours, I seriously considered, am I that committed? And I talked to my wife about this, and she says, look, the chances of your being, you know, injured in another attack in Paris are less than your flight over. But will you be able to enjoy yourself and relax? And that was a question I wrestled with for the next day. And then I decided that, no, I wasn't going to be able to relax, but I was going to go anyway. Because I wasn't going to let those goddamn bastards stop. I'm doing this. The city was mourning, and the city was alive. This is Place de la République, the tribute to the slain people were extremely moving. You could not go here and not get moved by the response of the city to this terrorist attack. It was all over the place. It was the sentiment of, we will not be afraid. You will not bend us. You know, Hitler came in and Paris survived. And ISIS is there and Paris will survive. And the show will go on. They didn't cancel COP21. It went on, even though that's a really juicy target. Imagine, had they been able to hit this thing. Now, some people were tired of reality, and they went to an event where they could, you know, just escape for a few minutes into some world of their own. I don't even know what it was. Security was faux tight. This is the Louis Vuitton, and everybody who got wanted with the metal detector went off, and then they went on into the store. It was for show, basically, but there you were. The city went out of its way to welcome the 40,000 folks who came. Bienvenue à ceux qui viennent défendre la planète. It's not exactly the English. It's welcome to those who have come to defend the planet. And nous ne pourrons pas dire à nos enfants que nous ne savions pas. We cannot tell our children that we didn't know. That, I think, is an echo of darker times 70 years ago. And the French were standing up and saying, we now know. Where else but in Paris would you find, painted on the subway walls, the general circulation model equations that define modern climate science? They were all over the place.
Is that what those were?
Yeah, that's what those are. It's been a long time since Diff E. I don't understand them, but there they were. This is me and my friend Joe Robertson, who was our Citizens Climate Lobby international strategic coordinator, a brilliant guy. The woman next to him is a member of our German CCL chapter. This is on the metro. It was cold later on in the event. We felt very secure. Here are two police officers at the venue carrying what looked to be World War II hunting rifles and the latest in technology to fight these high-tech terrorists. And inside the venue, everything felt normal. And it was amazing. This is the green zone, which was huge, huge. And I didn't have a blue badge, so I never went into the protected, the official government side where, you know, all the delegates were. But it was very exciting. Very large spaces for classrooms, eating, meeting, poster sessions, and then removed from this, a bus ride away in the old Le Bourget airport, where they have their Air and Space Museum, was even another zone, which was sort of like a trade show, where countries and companies had very extensive exhibits of clean technology and all the things they were doing to make the world a greener place. It was really very, very elaborate. So I did meet the world's climate activists, and there were many, many in costumes and, you know, indigenous dress of various kinds, and it was very exciting. It was a conference of the United Nations, almost 200 countries represented, and it was thrilling. And there was art. You know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And there was a sense of seriousness, of purpose. You know, most countries of the world are poor and have contributed very little to climate change. The big offenders, of course, are the United States, the United Kingdom, where the Industrial Revolution started, and Germany. 50% of cumulative emissions are accounted for. Here's the family. It was thrilling to see all these delegates from 196 countries. President Obama, this is on day one, the beginning. This is a picture I took of our TV screen, because nobody could go in unless you were an official. He gave a very beautiful speech. I suggest you watch it on YouTube. Basically committing and acknowledging everything he's done. And Obama deserves a lot of credit for the success of this conference, starting with the disaster in Copenhagen 6 years ago. James Hansen was there, being kind of a spoiler. This was his talk at the Place to Be, where he changed his intro slide from climate justice to injustice and government honesty to dishonesty. And basically what he was saying is, without a global price on carbon, this entire conference is a fraud. And he was not mincing his words. Am I out of time? Almost. What he's saying is, without a global carbon price, nothing works. This is the conference of Hansen and his three buddies, climate scientists calling for more research on new nuclear. I attended a private ceremony with Vice President Gore that was very, very moving and interesting, and he spoke to his, there must have been 100 climate reality folks there. Another very interesting poster. And so the question now is, now what? Where do we go? There was, I think, a lot of greenwashing and whitewashing here. The smiley face button was being distributed, I don't know by whom, but that is not where we need to think. The United Nations can only do so much. They're not a world government. How do we break the addiction? That is up to every individual country. They do not tell countries what to do. The United Nations does not have an army or nuclear weapons or an air force. So we've got this hodgepodge of carbon pricing all over the world, and what has to happen, what Hansen is saying has to happen, what the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition is saying has to happen, is a worldwide price on carbon. Interestingly, during this, at the very beginning, the Carbon Tax Center in New York released a statement calling for a carbon tax that was signed by a stellar list of former Treasury secretaries and heads of state. I'm pleased that I could get, I recruited Secretary Schultz to sign this thing, and that's where we have to go.
It's the wrong video. I think you're still playing the craziest one. This is what was playing before.
So Tillerson didn't get heckled?
I know.
He's rather stocks at a 5-year.
Here we go.
These costs and consequences inherent to cap and trade schemes have led many policy experts and economists to prefer another course of action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That other option is a revenue-neutral carbon tax. I know that's hard for a politician to say, so we've given them a new name. They can call it a refundable greenhouse gas emissions fee. Because a carbon tax is directly applied to the carbon content of fossil fuels or to other greenhouse gas emissions, there is no need for government to pick winners and losers in the industry through such complex allowance and allocation processes as we have witnessed on the Hill of late.
That's it. So I'll conclude. Yeah, so in this election year, climate is going to be an issue. There's no doubt about it. You have one party that's completely in denial and another that does accept it. And I think it's up to us in this movement who are activists to make sure, A, this issue stays on the front burner, and B, to be cognizant of the solutions. Carbon pricing is now on the table. There's no question about it. It has risen from what to, oh, that's interesting, and there's no way for countries to fulfill their INDCs, their individually determined national contributions, without pricing carbon. From there, we'll derive an argument of what is the best way to price carbon. And we're going to have a lot of focus on cap and trade, which, in my judgment, has failed on an international scene, versus a carbon tax. And that's why I'm spending so much of my energy with Citizens Climate Lobby. I think Mr. Gore has been very wise and judicious to talk about carbon pricing, and he's endorsed cap and trade, of course, which failed in the United States in 2010, and he has not endorsed a carbon tax because the minute he does so, the opposition party has to oppose it, and so he's been quiet about it. But I have no doubt that he knows its virtues, and when the time comes, when some brave Republicans come forward to sponsor a bill, he may step forward and to support them. And I think all of us should learn more about these methodologies so that when the time comes for the public debate, we're prepared to go in and educate the public and the media about a carbon price that takes the form of a revenue-neutral carbon tax. So thanks for having me.